Welcome everyone back to the Aura Fury podcast. We're here starting in episode 1 into season 3. It's kind of crazy to think that we've already been doing this for 3 years. The time really flies by, and we are so glad to have you all here with us still after 3 years. Today we've got some incredible guests, and they're going to be going over a game that they're working on and telling you about some of the life of being in indie development. The name of their studio is FlatNine, and we are so excited to have them with us. Uh, I am Jacob Ray, also known as Econobrony in Discord, and I have with me from Aura Fury Alex Thompson, who's also known as Plexus in the Discord. And I'm going to allow Harrison to start us off in introducing himself, and we'll move through the rest of our awesome guests here.
Sure. My name is Harrison Wade. I founded the studio, but I also do some of the creative design and I compose the music for the game as well.
Jackson, you want to go next?
Sure, yeah. Hi, I'm Jackson Wagner. I am kind of the project lead programmer, wear a lot of hats, design, writing, QA, the whole nine yards, except for art. But yeah, happy to be here.
Awesome. We're glad to have you. And we have Christine.
Yeah, I'm Christine Wade. I voice live in the game and I also run all of the social media.
Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you all here. And as you can see, we have some diverse backgrounds here on different parts of the project. So we're going to get some awesome perspective coming in. We're going to start with the first question and kind of start with the basics. What is Letter Loss and what kind of experiences are you trying to create for players?
Yeah, I'm really interested in games as an experience. Games like Outer Wilds or even like more recently, like Red Dead Redemption 2, things like that that are less about the gameplay, the moment-to-moment gameplay, and more about the experience of it as a whole. And that's kind of going into Letter Loss. What we really wanted to do was create this really unique experience that the player has a lot of agency in how they play and operate the game from their end.
Outer Wilds might be one of my favorite games that I've ever played.
Oh yeah.
All right. So the title Letter Loss feels very personal. Is this game driven more by narrative, puzzle solving, exploration, or something else?
Quite a few things. Yeah, I think the name tries to get across that there's a lot of different ways that you could interpret that name, right? Um, what is lost? Is it you? Is it the letters? Et cetera, et cetera. It's pretty driven by narrative. We call it narrative exploration in terms of choosing how to interact with the NPCs that you meet and how to solve the asks that they give you, the sort of questions and quandaries that they present to you. So we just want to create a lot of different ways to come at those, and those end up feeling rather puzzly sometimes. There are some puzzle solutions to things. There are some dialogue solutions to things. There are just some experimenting solutions to things with how to solve the problems that you were presented as a player.
Okay, so it's not very linear then, that you can take some different perspectives on it or different paths.
Quite, yeah, yeah. Does anyone else have anything to chime in there?
Yeah, I was just gonna say the branching narrative is a really core component of the game and really represents a lot of what we want players to get out of it, which is, the more you engage with these NPCs and the more you kind of interact with them, the deeper you'll find their stories are and the kind of different paths you'll find for, how their stories can end. And in the end, you'll find that how you interact with them can influence the way your own story ends. And even beyond that, the branching narrative is one place where we really wanted, of course, choices to feel impactful, but also the core part of the core experience of the game is you are working as a postal employee at a totally normal post office. And we want that experience to be really satisfying and we want that to be like the mini games to be really enjoyable. But we also want it to be kind of up to the player of, if you are less interested in really being a good postal employee, you should still be able to enjoy the game and kind of get a lot out of it. It'll just be a different experience, which should hopefully bring people back and kind of make them able to play the game and have a different experience each time.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like there'd be a lot of replayability because you get to go and experiment and see which direction you go with it and then see what the outcomes end up being.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what kind of inspired the story and emotional tone of the game? Is there a particular theme or moment that defines it?
Yeah, I think to go all the way back, the core concept came from like the kernel of it came from a game called Frog Fractions, which is totally unrelated. But the kernel of it was that it's a game that marketed itself as something completely different than what it ended up being. Um, and I won't spoil anything about it, but there's a particular moment where you as the player have to decide to do something that then progresses it forward. And we wanted to take that moment and just multiply it across the game where you could just play it as a totally normal post office game with nothing weird that ever happens. But if you happen to see something weird and pursue that weird thread, then you will get weird results. And that was the sort of central ethos that we wanted to capture with it.
I do love it when a game is willing to take that like added realism and added like scope of the world, so you could just play it as a regular postman. That sounds fantastic.
For sure, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, you might
And
run
it'll still
into
be weird.
some challenges that I don't think a normal post person would ever face, but I think that's part of the fun.
You're just a regular postman, head
Yeah.
down, just trying to do your postman job,
Yeah,
living your postman life.
absolutely.
That's fantastic. I'm thrilled to hear that that's an option.
And the goal too was to provide like not overwhelming, but just like a lot of different threads for the player to pull on. So whatever spoke to them in the moment, if you open a package and you see a hand in it or something, and you can just say nope, and then put it right back in the mail, right? But if you find something that really interests you and you really want to dig into and figure out what that is, we want to provide those threads that you could
Hmm.
pull on and just end up in like wildly varying little narrative pathways, essentially.
Yeah, let the players pull the threads instead of
Yeah,
pulling the player with threads, sort of thing.
absolutely.
Nice, very nice. So next bit I want to dig into is on the visual and audio style. So what sort of atmosphere were you creating? You mentioned there's a hand in there, so I'm assuming there's a bit of maybe some
Hypothetically,
horror
yeah. I
elements
don't think
going
there actually isn't
on,
a
or
hand in the mail yet, but
There is
hypothetically there
no.
could
I
be.
actually added that last week.
Oh, there is.
oh,
Okay,
Yes,
cool. All
Oh
right.
that
my.
was pretty prescient.
There could be a severed hand in
maybe
the mail.
without too many spoilers, I guess. So, like what's the
Yeah, yeah.
atmosphere that you're crafting here,
Um,
aside from being a
so
postman?
yeah, so I am a big fan of horror games. Not that this is like full blown, things chasing you horror or anything like that or gore. It's none of that. It's more atmospheric unease, I think, is what we're trying
Hmm.
to get across at all times. This sort of contrast of like quiet rain and gentle sort of zen piano, and then sort of weird and unsettling encounters. And that sort of plays into the like we call it like the violation of the player safe space, basically. So sounds that hint at someone else is above you or below you or things like that, even though these are like your safe spaces that no one should be in. Things like that are sort of how we're trying to craft this game of
Hmm.
just the contrast between the unease and the sort of coziness aspect.
Yeah, and even going beyond that, I've always been kind of a firm believer that, there are games that I would describe as cozy that no one else likely would feel that way. But like games like Dark Souls, I think there are very few things for me in a game that's cozier than sitting by the bonfire and knowing that like in that moment you are safe and you are, it it's something that I think can go beyond kind of what we generally think of when we think of cozy games. And yes, a big part of this game is trying to really thoroughly weave the unsettling nature of this place you found yourself in with these moments of genuine like contentment even. And so trying to strike that balance between making it almost this siren song of do the work, make your money, you can alter the post office to kind of suit your aesthetic preferences. And it's kind of telling you, okay, don't ask questions, don't worry about it. Yet at the same time, all of these weird and unsettling things are happening that are kind of constantly challenging that sense of calm. And so it's been a difficult balance to strike, but it's one that I think can be really, really satisfying in the end.
We discussed many times, and we still do. Is this a cozy game? Like, if there's a cozy game fest, is this a cozy game? And I think it's just very subjective as to what one thinks is cozy. One of my favorite things in the game is I loved Zelda Wind Waker sorting the little mail in the mail slots. And like that is with the music and you're sorting and you're stamping, it's extremely cozy. But I know a lot of people who are very into cozy games might look at this and go, no, you don't get it. And that's where we discuss it a lot. Like, what is this?
I mean, maybe there's an opportunity for a cozy mode or a Zen mode or something where you are only the postman.
That's true. That's a good point. One of
Hmm.
our sort of design principles was opt-in horror. So
Mm,
again, like if you see something that you don't want to interact with, you can usually just nope out of it and say like,
yeah.
absolutely not. Please leave the post office. I'm not talking to you. Um, so yeah, but that's a good idea actually. We should talk about that. Maybe an endless
Kind of
mode
fun.
where
Yeah.
nothing weird
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
For real, totally normal
Yeah.
post
Yeah, yeah.
office game.
Not that anything
Really
weird
this
happens
time.
anyway.
That actually I'd never thought about, what really defines what a cozy game is. Obviously, for me, like Stardew Valley immediately comes to mind as a kind of a cozy game, but at the same time, what games I spend hours and hours and hours and hours into, uh, like very heavily into modded Minecraft is where I play in a particular one, mod Greg Tech that most people would say makes you suffer. But I absolutely love it and enjoy that, and that's where I can enjoy it. So it's going to be different for every single player. I could definitely see myself getting addicted into sorting mail and things like that too, because it's just, there's something about it like
Yeah.
satisfying about putting it into one spot or another.
It really does have this like Zen quality when you sit down and there's just like light thunder and this like really light tinkly piano music and you're just stamping and sorting. You just go into this like fugue state and then the bell rings and you're like, "Oh my gosh, okay. You have to get going." So, yeah.
Nice. Tying us back into the planned questions, before we go too far over time. Was there a moment in development where something unexpected happened, and that ended up improving the game?
Yes. So this will sound like a very minor thing, but it actually represented a pretty foundational shift for me, at least in the way I thought about how the player was going to interact with the game. So there is another contract programmer who works with us, and she's absolutely incredible. Um, and I had asked her to kind of, fix up some bugs that I'd found. And in the process, she had created a feedback system where basically, if you interact with something in the world like a locked door, rather than nothing happening and you just kind of being stuck in front of it, a bit of text would appear in the top left-hand corner. And it'd be one thing if she just had put text that said the door is locked. That it's kind of basic, but she's also a writer, and so she gave these feedback prompts this like slightly sardonic tone, and so it ended up adding a lot to the mystery. And so now we found throughout the game that's almost a fun way of rewarding the player for interacting with things is they could click on something new that they've discovered and they'll get a little bit of text in the top left that will either kind of gently direct them on the puzzle path or kind of reflect this not quite a narrator but something that has a personality in the background. And this all came from me just being like, hey, could you make it so if the door's locked they can't get into it or they have some feedback. So yeah, it's been a really really incredible element that I feel like we've been able to add to the game. And of course, it's not original by any means. And it was really just the tone that she gave that entity that I felt like just fit the game perfectly in an instant.
My
Nice.
favorite one is trying to interact with something that can't move and it says it seems to be bolted down. And it's like that's a weird thing to say about a picture frame or a telephone or like
Yeah.
it's good.
Nice. What are you most excited or nervous for players to discover once they sit down and play?
Hmm, that's a good question. I think mostly nervous for how much work goes into some of these paths that people might not like discover at all. Um, but I think that's like sort of planting a seed for like the long term sort of deal, but making sure that we hit that balance of things are easy to find uh, at times, and then some that are more difficult to find over times, things like that, I guess. Yeah, anyone else have one?
Yeah, I'm well, so first I'm excited for players to play it and find out that they enjoy it. That's kind of the base level thing you're looking forward to or hoping for. But no, I'm really excited for players to interact with the NPCs and kind of form their own attachments to them, because as a team, we talk about each of the ones that we create, and so we all have kind of our preconceived, like, oh, we kind of like this character, or oh, we wrote this character to be kind of mean and unpleasant. And so but I know that doesn't always match reality, or how players experience them, so I'm really excited for people to interact with them and form their own relationships and their own kind of perspectives of these characters that we maybe never had thought of in the first place.
Are you
I'm really
kinda
excited to. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, you can go ahead.
Oh,
I can tell you do my question next.
gotcha. I'm excited for someone to post at some point, like, what on earth is this? And a screenshot of something that they've discovered, that no one else has, and so they get to have that, like, moment of in the spotlight of they're the first person to find whatever thing in the game, stuff like that. I'm really excited to see those things develop.
That's actually kind of what I was about to ask. If you're going to
Oh,
be
okay.
excited about watching like content creators coming on and then having those surprise moments come up and
Oh yeah,
actually be
yeah.
able to see the facial expressions and everything of your players.
Mm-hmm.
And I think along with that, we're already active is some ARG elements, some puzzling that you can do right now as well. And so we have, a community of people on Discord who honestly watching them uncover the mysteries and help each other solve the mysteries is an absolute delight. And we're releasing it in parts, which is really fun too, that anticipatory excitement. So it's on carnumisle.com if you want to start our employee aptitude test.
I think it's
Good luck. Will you
Carnum
make it?
Island. Carnum Island. Yeah.
carnumisland.com.
Mm-hmm.
So find out if we're good enough to be a post person or not.
We'll see.
Exactly.
We welcome everybody, but are you good enough to ascend through the ranks? Is the real question.
So how do you prepare for your role in the game? Were there any scenes or lines that will particularly be challenging or rewarding?
Well, it's funny because I do a lot of different recording stuff. We have a recording studio here. And so honestly, recording involves going and crawling in a cave that we've created and sitting with an iPad in front of you, hunched like a little goblin, and then trying to sound really sardonic. And so it's pretty much a delight. It's fun. It's fun to just be able to be given direction and make adjustments. The character's really lovely and malicious, and I love it because that's the I think subversive nature of it. Is your boss Liv is maybe not here for you all the time.
Did you have any input on how the character was written or developed, or was it more traditional, like actor-director type relationship?
I generally just get the lines because my philosophy is really like it's on me to make it work for you guys. Every once in a while, there's a small thing that's hard to get out in the intention that they want, and we make a small adjustment, a small word change. But I'm like, it's on me to get what you guys want. But they have always asked me, like, does this sound like her voice? And I'm like, you tell me. I'll do whatever you want me to do. So
is it something you've had to do a lot of like practice and retakes on then?
I will break your heart and tell you that it's almost always a one take. It's like we just like sit in the basement and I'm like say something mean and then it gets in the game. So every once in a while there's a phrase that I'm like I hear it while I'm playtesting or I'm getting, clips and I'm just like, gosh, that's a hard one. But
It took
poor
some
Jackson has to hear me all day. Like
yeah, right.
Listen, I was going to say, first off, she's being incredibly modest. She says, oh, it's one take. It's because it goes in game and sounds incredible. And I'm just kind of like blown away each time. I'm like, oh yeah, that's the character. And so it's always funny seeing each other again in person because I'm like, oh, I have been listening to your voice every day as I'm playing the game and now like you're real.
So you should try living with her. It's
I know, I was going to say for
even
Harrison.
weirder.
But no, Christine is so incredibly skilled. I like truly I feel so fortunate that we have her as a part of the team and like able to be our kind of lead voice actress because the kind of core relationship in the game is between the player and Liv, and it is up to the player of how they interact with her, but she is very much her own kind of fleshed out person with her own opinions, and maybe she is not always the best person, but those are the more interesting characters, are the ones who aren't quite perfect all the time.
And if you saw me at DreamHack, I was going by Liv, and every once in a while someone would say, "Wait, are you the Liv in the game?" And yeah, yes. But that's the kind of fun, again, subversive stuff that we like to do, where we're crossing over reality in the game to create fun discovery moments for a player to go, "Wait a second, wait a second, wait a second. You're the one talking in all the reels, aren't you?" Those are discoveries that we want to create. For people to have when it's the right time for them to make that, mind click.
Very cool. So for students or aspiring voice actors out there, what advice would you give about getting into game voice work, especially in indie titles?
I come from a theater background. I've been a voice teacher for over 10 years, singing voice teacher, although I do work with friends on VO and things like that too. But I would say, and I say to all my students and artists, I really think diversification is really important. Just getting out there and making stuff, making connections, talking to people, little tidbits of VO work have been done by actor friends of ours who have connected and networked with us. And you don't always know where the connection is going to come from. So just like getting out there, getting a community theater production, do a short film, like narrate some reels, like just something to get your brand going and trying things, because it's hard to know what's going to stick until you just do a lot and then something sparks a flame. So I would just say diversify and don't be closed-minded to maybe an opportunity that doesn't seem exactly like where you want to go, but could open up a door to some kind of networking opportunity. I do think networking, sorry guys, it's so important, and it's not about like schmoozing with people and being fake. It's about finding your people who you can talk with and look in the eye and be like, "Wait, we get each other." That's how you get a job. It's not about like trying to impress people with how much you've done. So just find your people. If you talk to people and you're trying to network and you hate talking to them, they're not your people. So don't worry, you haven't lost anything.
That makes a lot of sense.
And for the record, that is very true of not just VO and games, but like games as a whole. It truly does not matter if you are a programmer, artist, whatever. You will gain so much more if you engage with the community, engage with other people working on projects, ask them, and again, like Christine said, it's not about, being super charismatic and like, schmoozing your way in. It's, you want to make genuine connections and you have to show genuine interest in what people are doing. And you'll find oftentimes that interest is reciprocated. And, before you know it, you'll have people who can help you with your projects.
Yeah, I think the best advice I've ever heard is if you want to be a good conversationalist, be a good listener. Like if you're
And you really
enjoying the thing you're
gotta,
listening to, then
yeah, and you have to lean in and, as Jackson said, engage and be interested in what other people do. I think the
yeah.
people who we get a lot of emails about, like, "Do you need this? Do you need this?" The people that we're going to connect to the most are the people who are actually having a conversation with us, not blind sending us a resume, because we're a tiny studio. We can't we can't afford it,
Yeah.
But when people have really engaged with us and been like, "I see what you're doing and here's why I'm interested," it certainly starts a quicker conversation than a cold call where people don't know what we're doing. So, and this exists in the theater world too, and in all arts, is like it's authentic connections is always more important. One real email versus 100 copy paste emails does it.
Makes a lot of sense. I want to jump into some of the technical and design challenges that you may have run into while developing the game and how you overcame them.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. The biggest problem that we started out with was deciding the kind of technical limitations of the game because, I've always, I grew up playing on a really crappy laptop that couldn't, I played Age of Empires at a 15 frame rate, It was a pretty grueling experience, and so I really wanted to make something that, in theory, people could enjoy on a wide variety of machines. So that was the first decision we had to make is, we want to make the art stylized and interesting and fun to look at, but at the same time, we need to recognize, there are limitations to technology. This isn't like a bash on other games. They have very good reasons for doing this sometimes, but when an update is 100 gigabytes, you really have to start asking some questions about, how are we maintaining this thing we've created, and how can we kind of refine it down. So throughout the design process, it was, fill this full of content, but also make it sustainable for people who maybe don't have the newest PC to play on. Um, and one of the biggest challenges there was it's a 3D environment, so it's not a 2D game, and there is a functioning physics system in it. And so we want the world to feel very interactable and fun, and like physics systems are just enjoyable in games. I love them. But also figuring out a way, Harrison requested early on that, every book that you see in the game you can open up and there will be text inside. And so making that a reality was a fun challenge that we kind of worked through together. And at the end of the day, it made a big difference, and it made the post office feel like a much more vibrant space. But yeah, definitely the two kind of biggest challenges were just from the start, keeping the scale and, technical restrictions in mind while creating it, and then making sure that, we made a fully interactable world that had a physics system, but, also didn't burn your computer the second you turned it on.
That sounds fantastic. And I guess that ties back into your theme where you're not pulling the character along, you're getting the character to pull themselves wherever they want to go.
Absolutely.
That's great. I always love those sorts of games. Um, Looking over at the narrative, how with it being a very narrative oriented game, how do you handle pacing? And how do you build that into your design
So yeah,
and
that's a great
programming?
question. And again, I don't want to make it sound like I do all the writing. We have some excellent writing contractors, and Harrison's done quite a bit of writing that's really helped us kind of find our vision for the game and the tone for the game. Pacing is really important, especially because the way the game works, you wake up in the morning and you go to work, and over the course of the day, NPCs will appear at the window and speak with you, and that's where a lot of your character interactions come from. And so pacing was something we had to really keep in mind of, okay, how many people are you talking to in a day? How many makes it feel bogged down versus, when does the post office feel like empty and lifeless? Because we don't want that either. And so it's been kind of this delicate balancing act that is very much still in progress. I mean, we're still writing stories, and we're still trying to fine tune, what's the right amount of conversation, and making sure that, the conversations themselves are punchy and interesting and have depth, but also that we're not asking our players to read an entire book for every conversation, because the truth is most people just won't do that in the first place. Um, yeah, and then as far as like the overall narrative pacing, I really don't want to give anything away. However, I will say that the game can kind of be broken up into three phases, and the tone and kind of frenetic nature of the stories changes between those phases. So you start out with some more, some weirdness, some kind of a certain amount of calm to it, and it does get kind of amped up as time goes on until you are kind of in the final third of the game, and these things are happening around you, and you're kind of, the lobster in boiling water. It's so weird now that you're kind of like, oh man, how did I get here? How am I dealing with, the post office flooding? Like when when was that an option? How did that start happening? So yeah, the pacing was definitely a critical thing that we're still talking about.
Nice. Um, Tying into the joys of India studio development, how do you end up prioritizing all the great features that you want to add in and the content you want to add in when you've got a limited time and budget?
So it tends to go with Harrison having an excellent, cool idea that I really like, that I basically say no to initially, and then he slowly wears me down over time until I am convinced that it's a great idea, and of course it's doable. We can make it happen. Let's do it.
This checks out 100%.
No, but really, that's part of why I'm so grateful to have just amazing team members, is because that is a conversation, and I, as the person who does most of the like actual implementation of features, I tend to be very, careful and conservative, kind of not wanting to overpromise. I scope creep is the boogeyman of the video game world, whether you're working in indie or AAA, and so I'm the one who's fiercely keeping a close eye on that. But at the same time, games need to have cool and interesting things in them, or else they won't be fun. And that's something I get reminded of pretty much every time we have a meeting. And so I'm very grateful for that. I think without those kind of reminders, I would be making a much less interesting game.
I think there's this really cool balancing act between Jackson and his wife Bailey, who are both working on the game, are veterans of this and have worked on some really big projects. And we look to their expertise all the time on like, I don't know, is this weird? Like, should we do this? And so I think that that is this wonderful anchor. And then Harrison and I come from a theater background and music, cruise ship, entertainment, like circus background, you know, and that brings a whole another set of experiences. And so I do think there's a lot of like, is this weird? Yes. Is this weird? No. Okay, we could do that. And then that just like creates some magic somewhere in the middle, that I think is a unique factor in the studio.
So you mentioned scope creep a bit. That's got to be one heck of a challenge. How do you even deal with that as like an indie studio? Because the only ones there to keep that from happening is, well, you.
I, I'm basically just terrified every moment of every day, and I find that really helps keep it in check.
Every time my mic lights up, he's like, "Oh my gosh."
My heart just starts beating faster. No, I think we just try to be really responsible, and every time, we're talking about, and from the start, we kind of determined what is most important to us, and what are these features that are kind of non-negotiables of without this, is the game the same? Is it really what we were trying to make in the first place? And I think the books were a really good example of that, in that Harrison really wanted that, and I pushed back incredibly hard. I was like, that is such a pain. So that could be, a real rough time, and could lead to a lot of issues. And, we talked about it and agreed in the end that if you have dozens of books lying around a post office that you can't interact with beyond picking them up and, shredding them, something is lost there. There is some level of interactivity and disappointment that the player is almost guaranteed to feel when they interact with it for the first time and realize, oh, okay, they couldn't get to this part of the game. Damn. And we just that one felt like something we just couldn't really let go.
And this kind of loops back into an earlier question about like a design problem that ended up being a really, interesting feature in the game, is we have a lot of classic literature in the game, and so I just control F'd a lot of those and found creepy passages about sleep. And it turns out it's almost 100% hit rate in classic literature that I can find really weird snippets to put into those books that are just creepy mentions of sleep or sleeping or being drowsy. It's yeah. So it ended up being a feature rather than a bug.
Wow. So what are some tools or frameworks you would use for the game that you'd recommend to like aspiring devs?
Yeah, absolutely. So the main tool we use for the branching narrative element is a program called Ink. It's a very basic branching narrative tool similar to another tool called Twine. And that is actually a really great place for people who want to get into narrative design and, writing stories and games to get started, because it has a very, very simple programming framework. So you don't have to know how to program to use it. It's really easy to get into, and it can really help you start to figure out, how do I want to structure stories? How can I create fun mechanics from, really simple tools? So yeah, Ink is definitely really, really great place to get started. We use Unity as the engine for our game, and it's fantastic, but it's also a game engine. It inevitably comes with just the initial overwhelming wave of features and possibilities that can be really tough for people like just getting started. If you're looking for a great kind of simpler game engine, Game Maker is fantastic for 2D games. Uh, and yeah, really just kind of when you're starting to make games, you don't want to feel overwhelmed by the tools available. You really just want to start making things, and picking the right tools is a really critical part of that.
Where would you find like ink, for instance?
It's free. So yeah, Ink, Twine, and Game Maker. Game Maker I'm not 100% on, but last I checked, all three are free online. You can download them. They're small programs. pretty easy to use. You learn a couple of the very basic like syntax things for how to make choices, and you can start making branching narratives, and you can send them to friends to play and try out, and you can put music and images in them. And they're really, really flexible, fantastic tools for people getting started.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing those. Uh, Moving on to kind of more of the social media component now. Social media for indie games is very, very critical. How do you approach promoting a story-driven game like Letter Lost without spoiling key moments in your social media?
Well, it is a fine balance because uh, if we don't integrate in any hints of what underbelly is in the game, it really seems like a sim game, like it's just like a simulation game, which is what we want to market, but it's also not what we want to market. And so it's this very fine balance of rewarding people who watch videos or content by saying like, did you see that little thing? That was weird, right? Because then they feel like they discovered something and then they're hooked and interested. And so it is there are things that we've revealed in trailers or reels or things like that that we've discussed like, well, do we want to reveal that yet? And we realize we kind of have to, because if we don't, people don't know that there's other aspects to the game, which is too core. So I think it's still a discovery that we're trying to make. But ultimately, it's like if some small spoiler, because there's a lot that no one will see until they play the game. But if there are small spoilers that get people excited enough to play the game, then it's worth it. So it's this kind of risk reward. What do we reveal? What do we not?
That's a very
We've
big
taken on
balancing act.
we've
Yeah.
taken on a bit of a like tongue-in-cheek tone to how we market as well and promote on social media, and that we're sort of hinting at the weirdness, calling people like you have eternal job security and you are a permanent employee of the post office and things like that. With our marketing, our ways, just like subtle ways of saying unsettling things. It doesn't give anything away, but it lets them know that this is not just a post office simulator, basically.
So, what platforms have been the most effective for Flat9, and what kind of content seems to connect most with your audience?
I would say that Blue Sky definitely connects best with other devs, which is really great. Uh, Instagram has had a lot of throughput for wish listing, and TikTok has been the best for just like overall views. But it's hard to get a call to action on TikTok because you have to actually pay to have a button that sends you somewhere. It's not as user friendly. It's better for I'm sorry, that's not the right phrase. It's more like it's great for scrolling, but they don't want you to leave the app. So they don't make it easy for you to go wish list. Instagram makes it easier to go wish list, but less people see it. So um, I would say different markets for different people, and different situations and what you're looking for. And I also think that'll change at different points of our process, because once it's released and there's more gameplay footage out in the world, then more things can be released on TikTok that we would. So it's like it's in motion. But we have a Facebook, we have a Tumblr, we have a Pinterest, we have everything. But I'd say those three, for different audiences, have been the most effective.
Okay, so for if another indie dev was looking at this, it sounds like they're going to have to basically try them all out and see which ones they get
I'm a
kind of the
big
traction
proponent of
on.
like, you're already making the content. You might as well get it out somewhere. And as somebody who has gone viral in their life, in other aspects of my life, you just don't exactly know what thing someone's going to pick up, and suddenly you'll be known for that forever. So I think just like getting something out is important, and also getting practice at just creating content. It's really hard to just make content for months. But you have to practice every day. Like, what interesting thing can I put out there? And the more you do it, the easier it becomes to pull those ideas out of your brain.
So when you're in an indie studio, development cycles can sometimes be a bit longer. How are you keeping people engaged and maintaining momentum on those social platforms whilst you're needing to get all the development work done to build out the game?
Yeah, thankfully I don't do anything on the back end with the game, so my time doesn't get taken up by that. I just do on the side of all my theater stuff. So I just sort of drip feed a lot of information, like cute dog pics, concept art. And as the build gets farther and farther along, it means I have more and more things to clip for reels and things. So it's like once a week, I just go back in and I'm like, oh, wow, it looks different. Let's make a new video. And so again, I think it's just about continually getting things in front of people. And the farther into development we are, the more stuff we have to get out in front of people. And I also just don't underestimate what people find interesting. There are things I'm like, who would like this? And someone's like, I think this is the coolest thing ever. So I just put it out there. And if someone loves it, they do. If they don't, well, tomorrow's another day.
We also have our Discord server and our ARG experience as ways that fans can actively engage with the game and with us. We do some sort of back and forth light like role play banter with them on the Discord as they're solving puzzles on our website and things like that. That's been really great so far to be able to just interact with people on a personal level and keep them engaged in the world before the game's even out.
Very cool. When I met you guys over at DreamHack, I was actually handed a an envelope that had some interesting things in it. So I saw you guys were doing something pretty unique in
Mm-hmm,
engaging
mm-hmm.
with social media and the game itself.
Yeah, we had 1,500 or well, it was 3,000 envelopes because each envelope had an envelope in it. But we used a label printer to lightly address envelopes to people. So we would put one on there that says person with the cool shirt or person with cool shoes or person with whatever. And when you walk by, we hand it to you and say, I think this is yours, and then we had like a live escape room puzzle experience that people could play at DreamHack, and we're doing that at PAX as well is the plan. But yeah, it ended up being a great way to just capture someone's attention, and people who otherwise just walked right by us. As soon as you hand them that letter, they're just immediately engaged. Like, what on earth is this? Especially if we can get a really specific one of like person with a floral shirt, or we could print it out really quick. There was a group of friends who I handed one out to like person in the black shirt, person in the red shirt, person with the cool hair, and they were joking and saying, "Do you have one for a garden gnome? Because our friend is really short." And so the people at the table heard this and printed one out, and I was like, "Sure, here you go." And it just blew their minds, like being able to capture people in that way. It was very cool.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm
that
very
is awesome.
sad that I didn't get a chance to go by your table at DreamHack.
Yeah, I think it's a real example about how people are hungry again for folks leaning in and interacting in person. I know there are people who are like, I don't want that interaction. And I totally get that too, but I mean more the personal, like, I see you, I'm here, we're in this space. Cons have such an energy to them. And it's like, aren't we all here together to do this thing? And it really would stop people in their tracks. The number of people who would take it and be like, yeah, 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 okay, whatever. And we'd watch them walk about 10 feet away, look down at it, look back at us, look back at the envelope, and then they were hooked in the puzzle. Because they want to, we're all gamers, we all want to play games, but we also want to come out of the screen and have conversations too. And I think that's one of the things we're really trying to do with the marketing, with the ARG, with the live experience, is pull the game and the mystery and the intrigue out of the game and then hook you back in.
Do you
Nice.
remember which address you got out of curiosity? How was your envelope addressed?
I don't remember. You know what's funny is I didn't even notice the sticker on the front.
Oh, you did?
I got
That's
I
great.
got the envelope and opened it up and read the stuff
Yeah.
and I was like, "Oh, this is really cool."
And did you open the envelope and the envelope?
Yes, I did
You
open the
did.
envelope.
Interesting.
No,
Interesting.
I,
Hmm.
I was
that was
too
bad.
I was too curious.
That's sort of a what we wanted it to be was a microcosm of what the game is like, in that you could complete the experience without opening the inner envelope. But if you did open it, then you got sent in some different directions and some extra stuff that you got to see. But you didn't get to see the other one either. So, some replay value if you wanted to see both sides of it.
I still have the envelope, so I'm gonna have to go upstairs and see what you guys labeled on it.
Ah,
Nice. So when you've got people who are focused in different areas, some dev, some creative, some wearing multiple hats, but there's still some separations. How do you make sure people are collaborating? And do you do anything to like align tone and voice across everything, or does it kind of
Yeah,
happen
so
naturally?
I I really love, and this comes from like our background and working for theater, like live theater productions. I really love a collaborative process where someone throws out an idea and then everyone tacks on their little flavor to it, and that ends up creating like our own unique flavor to something. So when we have a problem and we're able to tackle it from a lot of different angles, and solve things in ways that we wouldn't think of on our own, it's really nice. Like I have no programming background, so there are things that seem very cut and dry for me that are not, but then from the opposite angle, like whenever we run up against a solution and someone's able to say like, well, why don't we just do it this way, and sometimes it ends up working out, vice versa from like other angles and perspectives of just having as many different perspectives to throw at a problem usually ends up getting you through it. And it's really cool to see and to have work out in action.
I think about how in voice acting, it's like once in a while, one of the lines that would often get edited is when one of our writers in our team would write dot, 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 phrase, dot, 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 okay, dot, 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 yes, that makes sense. And I had to be like, I can't indicate hesitancy because there's no sound there. Right? Like in a conversation, a pause would indicate that, but when there's no other voice acting in it. And so things like that, where it's like, and then as soon as I let them know, we have to create hesitancy in another way because I can't do that silently without you seeing my face. It was like, oh, yeah, of course. And so those things that you don't really realize till you're in someone else's shoes, and then suddenly it's like, oh, yeah, duh, of course. And then it all gets fixed. Like, I feel like those situations happen all the time.
Makes sense. Is there any advice that you would give for a small studio just starting out, trying to build an online presence, especially if nobody even knows they exist yet?
Yes. The first one is if you can take your time. I think, and it's a little bit hypocritical coming from us considering, in theory, by the time we release, the game will have been in development for about a year and a half, maybe like a little longer than that, but it's pretty tight timeline. But really, if you're making your own game and you're trying to get an online presence, take your time to make sure you're really fond of the concept because it's likely one you're going to be holding on to for a while. So you need to make sure you actually like it and you can, still be passionate about it. And then as far as like spreading an online presence, I think it's like Christine said, is you really just create create a presence everywhere and very consistently try to push in each of those realms and see which one works out best for you, see where you get some traction, find other creators who are maybe doing things that are in your same kind of realm. And again, genuinely engage with them. Don't just be like, hey, repost my stuff. Genuinely engage with them. And, you'll learn a lot about what you're making and what they're making. And oftentimes it's those connections that can really buoy you into catching on to those, if not viral moments, those moments of connection with lots of people that can help you actually grow your following.
I
One of
think
my
sorry,
I
go
was
ahead,
gonna
Christine.
say, people can steal this. When we did DreamHack, we just did a competition. We have like a showcase coming up. Every single time I go and I create a Blue Sky starter pack of everybody who is involved. And Blue Sky has this thing where you can create basically a follow all these people of any size you want. And so I created a DreamHack starter pack where it was like, here's all the indie creators who have Blue Skies. It is People love when you advertise them authentically, and then you naturally also get goodwill because you were doing a nice thing, and they'll follow you, and you're creating something to help someone else. I'm really big on like slow and steady and authentically help others, and it's going to come back around. It's going to take work to help others because you really want to help yourself, but like when you're coming from absolutely zero, nothing, you have to figure out ways to reach out to people in a real way. So, like, whether that's an Instagram or whatever, I swear if you message some indie company and you actually watch their video and you say something about what they're doing, you will make their day. You will make their day so much. And then they know you, and now you can talk to them. But it takes real work. So, like, lean in more, help other people, and it's going to take longer, like a lot longer than you think, but it'll be authentic.
I think continually coming at it from the perspective of I don't personally believe that any indie studios are in competition with each other. I think they should all be in cooperation with each other. The gaming market is large enough, and the indie slice of that is a small enough slice that we're not going to oversaturate by collaborating with each other. And so when we went to DreamHack and when we're going to be going to PAX West, we reached out to a bunch of other devs and collaborated with them in our live experience that we did, the escape room. And so one of the sort of choices like sent you to another booth, and it's like, on paper I understand it's weird to be like, go away from our booth and go over there, but now we're like really good friends with the devs from that game. And if they go to PAX, like we're probably going to do it again. We're going to try to involve as many other studios as possible, because if you help other people, they will more than likely reciprocate that towards you and be able to sort of cross promote between your platforms.
Very nice. Yeah, the collaboration is definitely great, and having the quests can be quite fun. I think the first place I saw that was at DreamHack, funnily enough, with the DreamHack quest.
Yeah,
So having more quests to do, I mean, in a gaming convention, that sounds great.
absolutely.
And it's awesome that you guys have been trying to make all those different connections while you're out there, because it's often a lost opportunity when people go to vend, or whether it's to sell something, or in our case, when we were there, we're just trying to create awareness of the things that we do. Uh, like 70% of everything that you can gain from there is through all those different connections, the people you can meet, and the things that can come from those connections later on. Uh, it's extremely valuable.
Yeah.
I
And it's
can't
just
tell you
not.
how many business cards Harrison had stacked up like a little dragon's treasure trove because he understands how valuable a personal email to a streamer is. Meaning, like having that connection and being like, I saw you, remember me, I was the letter person. And he gets that.
It's not that difficult to rehearse even something that to say to people, to get the networking ball rolling. And I hear a lot of people say like, I'm not good at networking, but I would just tell them it's just something you have to practice. um I'm not good at anything that I just start doing without practicing it. It takes time to rehearse these things and to get your feel with it. And so just put yourself out there, continue to network, continue to practice and get better at it, because that's where a lot of your connections come from. And the bar is really low for just treating someone like another person, like that you're interested in. Like you said, most of having discussions, listening. And that doesn't involve talking. You can just sit and ask someone questions about themselves and just be interested and listen to what they have to say. And then you've networked.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people with a lot of things in life just assume like, oh, there's people who are just naturally gifted and there's me who isn't. And
Yeah.
secretly behind the scenes, that person who's naturally gifted has often done a whole lot of practicing in their life to get to that point.
Yeah, I was in like grade school, middle school. I was wildly shy, very, very shy. And then I went to high school, and none of my friends went to the same high school I did. And I decided my first day of high school, I'm tired of being shy. And it didn't happen immediately, but I would consider myself mostly an extrovert now. I still have some shy tendencies, but not when it comes to networking. I really like doing that now because I learned how to like it.
And I would consider myself an introvert, but if anyone saw me at the con, they would not think that. And so it's definitely not just an extrovert's game. I think you learn how to bring certain things forward and how to protect your own energy so that you don't get too worn out. Or like every night after the con, everyone can speak for it. I slept for like 11 hours because I was like, I need that in order to come back tomorrow and be really engaged for that long of a time. And so I think again, it's about finding like your strategies. How do you get into those conversations? You don't have to be like a wordsmith extrovert. You just have to find your way in.
Well, speaking of networking and such, so how can our viewers find Letter Loss and Flat9?
All of our social media will go through the FlatNine Games social media. So we don't have any letter loss specific places except for our Discord. And so you can find us on Instagram at FlatNine Games. We've got a website, flat9games.com. We've got a Blue Sky, that's FlatNine Games. We've got a Facebook, that's FlatNine Games. I think the best way to get to our Discord would probably be through Instagram. We've got a link tree on there with all sorts of cool things that we've got. Our Discord's on there. I think you may also be able to get there through the aptitude test at carnumisland.com. And so there's a lot of pathways, but also if you only get to one of those and you're like, shoot, I was looking for that, you can DM like the Instagram and it'll be me and I'll answer personally.
Or email.
I'll be there.
I will answer any email that anyone sends me, even if it's just to introduce yourself or ask if we have any needs for anything. I will still answer any email, and I love getting emails like that.
And so you can find his email on the flat9games.com, but it is harrison@flat9games.com. We've also got a mailing list on our website. So there's a lot of paths. We're trying to give everyone whatever path makes sense for them.
Or if you want to see us in person, like we said, we will be at PAX West coming up at the end of August. And if you pass by our booth, you might get a piece of mail that was somewhat addressed to you.
We'll definitely share some of their social links and such down in the description of this video so you can easily find them. Was there any of your personal socials or anything that any of you wanted to shout out at this point?
No, it's all about the game right now. I swear, sometimes I feel like I'm just staring into the future and all I see are letters.
I've got to keep my cover as Liv.
Yeah.
Yeah. In all of our marketing, she's like role playing as Liv. So yeah, we can't spoil it too much. Other than your viewers here will get the inside scoop that her name's actually Christine.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much all for coming on and sharing all these unique insights. It's been some great information for our viewers and also probably students that will be watching this. We appreciate all of your time and thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
for
Thank you
having
very
us.
much.
Thank
Thank you. And it was great to meet you at DreamHack. Hope we get to meet again at another convention someday.
Me too. That would be awesome. And maybe there'll be another a letter addressed at me.
There might be.
All right. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you all in the next episode. Have a great one, everyone.